with some opening words from the poet Rilke. And by the way, of course, our theme for tonight is the Soul Matters theme for the month, which is becoming. And this is from Rilke. Want the change. Be inspired by the flame where everything shines as it disappears. The artist, when sketching, loves nothing so much as the curve of the body as it turns away. What locks itself in sameness has congealed. Is it safer to be gray and numb? What turns hard becomes rigid and is easily shattered. Pour yourself out like a fountain. Flow into the knowledge that what you are seeking finishes often at the start and with ending begins. Every happiness is the child of a separation it did not think it could survive. And Daphne, becoming a laurel, dares you to become the wind. I'm going to open with a little song from our hymnal, Gathered Here in the Mystery of the Hour. You're welcome to sing along with me, although you'll need to be muted because that's the way it has to work with Zoom. But the words are gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit draw near. Spirit draw near. Spirit draw near. I'd like to spend just a few minutes reflecting on why it is that we gather as members of a religious community and why we gather for these evening services and sharing circles. And there are two very short stories that I'll share that point to our reason for doing these things. The first story is about a man who ventured into the wilderness of Africa somewhere. Only his porters accompanied him, and they each carried a machete in their hands, and they made their way through the thick vegetation. Their aim was to keep going at any cost. If a river appeared, they would cross it in the shortest time possible. If there was a hill, they quickened their pace so as not to waste even a single minute. But suddenly, the porters stopped. They came to a complete halt. And the man that was with them was surprised. They'd really only been walking for a few hours. So he asked them, "Why have you stopped? Are you already tired after so few hours of walking?" And one of the porters looked at him and said, "No, we are not tired. It's just that we've been moving so quickly that we have left our souls behind. Now we have to wait for them to catch up with us again." Because of the sometimes breathless pace of our lives and pace of the world, we've all felt disconnected from ourselves at one time or another, as if the person who got out of bed, went to work, spoke, was not us, but a stranger. It's something that we feel a lot of times when we're immersed in our busy lives and we can't seem to find a way out. So, one of the reasons that we pause for evening services and sharing circles is to find our center again, to allow our soul, however you might conceive of a soul, to catch up with us. Another story along these same lines is about a horse that suddenly came galloping up a road at breakneck speed. There was a man on the horse, and it seemed as though the man had somewhere really important to go. Another man who was standing there along the roadside shouted out to the man on the horse, "Where are you going?" And the man on the horse replied, "I don't know. Ask the horse." Sometimes it can feel like we're being carried away along at this frantic pace by a horse that we can't control, headed for somewhere that we can't even name or necessarily imagine. And that horse can be the exigencies of our jobs, it can be the never ceasing 24-hour news cycle, it can be the seeming chaos of political and social upheaval. Over the past year or so, we've been carried breathlessly ahead by a number of forces that are in many ways beyond our control, one of which is the ongoing pandemic. We can control our response to the pandemic. We can get vaccinated and we can continue to practice recommended safety measures, but we can't really control other people's responses, and that's extremely frustrating sometimes. But in order to gain some much needed perspective and have a better understanding of where we are going, we sometimes have to dismount whatever horse we've been riding and take a look around us and within us. We need to take stock of where we've come from, where we are, and where we want to go from here. Without these intentional pauses, these moments to feel and reflect, then our souls never do quite catch up with our bodies, and it feels like we're being carried away on a runaway horse. And that's why we're here tonight. That's why we gather in religious communities and in services like this one and in our sharing circles to pause, to reflect, to make space, and to listen. Yesterday, as all of you know, was a momentous day for our country. The guilty verdict in the case of the Minneapolis police officer who killed George Floyd might represent a turning point in our history. But that particular runaway horse of race-related police violence continued to move along. Even as the verdict was handed down in Minnesota, there were reports of other police killings, including one in Columbus, Ohio. The way the news cycle works, we're not given any time or space to process something before the next thing comes down the pike, the next horse that is carrying us to God knows where. I said that yesterday's events might represent a turning point, and it might, but only if we are willing to stop and reflect for a moment to better understand what's happening and our role in it. And only if we are willing to listen and respond to what we are being called to do in this moment. The song I'm about to sing is an invitation to let our souls catch up with us for a moment, to get off the horse that's been carrying us at such a breakneck pace and just listen. And perhaps in the hush of the moment, we might find what we are called to do next. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh, Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? It sounds like a justice. Somebody's calling my name. It sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? As I said, our Soul Matters theme for this month is becoming. Part of becoming in an intentional way has to do with pausing, as I said before, so that our souls can catch up with us and so that we have a chance to listen to whatever inner voice may be calling us in a particular direction at any particular moment. Another important aspect of becoming has to do with the role that we all have to play in helping one another become our truest and most authentic selves rather than what other people's expectations might be. One of the greatest gifts, I think, that we can give to another person is seeing, appreciating, loving, and supporting them just as they are, not trying to turn them into something or somebody else, but reflecting and holding up those innate qualities that make them who they are. There's a story that a colleague of mine tells that there was once a little girl who was walking beside a creek when she happened to see a frog that looked to her very sad. She asked herself, I wonder why that frog is so sad. And then she remembered a story once told to her by her mother about how a girl had kissed a frog and how the frog had magically turned into a handsome prince. And she thought to herself, maybe that's why the frog is so sad. No one will kiss it so that it can become a prince. And she decided that she'd give the frog a kiss herself. And she did, but nothing happened. There was still just a frog sitting there on her hand. She set the frog back on the ground and said, poor frog, I'm so sorry I couldn't turn you into a handsome prince. But to her surprise, the frog replied, oh, but you have done something far better. You have made me a happier frog. And the frog hopped off with a great smile on his face. The moral of the story, as told by my colleague Chris Bice, is as follows. Frogs need love too. You may not be able to see the frog change on the outside, but a little love and attention makes everyone feel like royalty on the inside. On the journey of becoming, each of us has a role to play both for ourselves and for others. And one of the best things we can do to love those around us, not for the handsome prince that we might wish them to become, but for the beautiful and flawed human being that they already are. And that's another one of the the beautiful things about our sharing circles and other groups in the church is finding ways of affirming, listening to, and supporting one another in ways that benefit everyone.